Okay, so if you've ever been right there, about to really commit to someone, maybe getting a place together, handing over a key, and you feel this weird little pang, like you're giving up some core piece of you, well, you're definitely not the only one feeling that. That whole idea that commitment equals some kind of big personal loss, it's really central to how we see relationships today.
It really is. And it brings us straight to the big question for this deep dive, doesn't it? Why is modern love just so damn hard?
Yeah.
We're digging into sources, looking at, well, mainly three things hitting us all at once. Crazy high expectations, this intense focus on the individual self, and kind of the cold way we treat potential partners like products.
And the sources, they're mostly sociological, right?
Yeah.
They paint this, complicated picture. We're freer, sociologically speaking, than ever before. We can pick partners without needing the family or the village sign-off.
Definitely freer. But that freedom, like always, it comes with a pretty big price tag. The trade-off seems to be relationships that are just incredibly fragile. We're looking at this idea from the sociologist Zygmunt Bauman. He famously called it liquid love.
Liquid love, that sounds like nothing ever really sets, like bonds just form and dissolve really easily.
Exactly. That's Bauman's point. It's this constant state of change, relationships often being short, maybe a bit superficial, almost designed so you can get out easily rather than aiming for forever. But to get why the love is liquid, first we need to look at the container we're trying to hold it in, which is, these totally overwhelming and contradictory expectations we have.
Okay, yeah, let's unpack that. Expectations. What did communities used to do that we're now piling on to just one person?
Well, it's fascinating when you think about the huge gap left when all those community structures, family, church, the local neighborhood started to fade.
Right.
A couple of centuries back, they gave you emotional support, maybe financial help, your social standing, practical stuff. But as society got more individualistic, we kind of outsourced all of that to our partner.
So instead of a whole village offering comfort, advice, support, intimacy, now we expect our partner to be this everything bagel of human connection.
That's a perfect way to put it. An everything bagel. And it means we lean on them not just for love, but, to tell us who we are, maybe even validate our self-worth, which is dangerous territory.
Yeah, it turns the relationship into this massive pressure cooker.
Absolutely. It basically sets us up for what some of the work around Esther Perel talks about, these impossible vows. We're asking for things that just don't go together, demanding the impossible, really.
The impossible vows.
Yeah.
Give me some examples.
Yeah, and they're kind of heartbreaking because you can see the anxiety behind them, this need to cover everything. Perel looked at modern vows where couples promise in the same breath to be their partner's greatest fan and toughest adversary.
Wow. Okay. Or being their partner in crime and consolation and disappointment. I mean, how can one person be the exciting thrill seeker and the safe place to land simultaneously? It's psychological whiplash waiting to happen.
And it gets even more detailed, more micromanaged, which just shows how much work people think is involved in meeting these needs. Like promising never to wear heels so your partner doesn't feel short, or promising to always bring their favorite chocolates around that time of the month. But, and this is key, never actually asking if it is that time because you might offend them.
Oh, that chocolate example is brilliant. It's not about real connection. It's about performing perfect prediction.
Yeah.
Like you're supposed to be a mind reader.
Yes, instead of just, talking honestly. And it points straight to the core contradiction in modern commitment. We want the exact same person to give us stability, safety, predictability, dependability, that solid ground.
Right, the anchor.
And at the very same time, we want them to provide awe, mystery, adventure, risk, the excitement.
It's the ultimate paradox, isn't it?
Yeah.
We want the person who feels like home to also be this wild, unexplored frontier. No wonder people feel like something's always missing.
And think about why people used to stray. Historically, marriage wasn't about passion. That was often found elsewhere. Marriage was like a practical contract.
Okay.
But today, we leave or stray because the relationship isn't delivering the whole package, the promised love, the passion, the stability, and that constant undivided attention. The whole deal now rests on meeting this huge, impossible list.
So the expectations are crushing things from the inside.
Right.
And then you've got the world outside the relationship. This world of seemingly infinite choice, it must be hard to really invest when the next perfect person feels like it's just a swipe away.
Exactly. That marketplace effect is huge. And it flows right from what we were just saying, because once a partner inevitably fails to meet those impossible expectations, the modern hyper-rational mind immediately starts scanning for a replacement.
And tech just throws gasoline on that fire.
Right.
You mentioned Tinder, 51 million users, 1.6 billion swipes a day.
Yeah.
That's just an overwhelming nonstop catalog of options.
It fundamentally shifts how we view commitment itself. Going back to Bowman's liquid love idea, committing long-term can actually start to feel suspicious. Like, Are you limiting yourself? Are you settling? Is it oppressive?
Does the focus shift?
From trying to improve the quality of the relationship you have to just maximizing the quantity of relationships you could have.
That sounds incredibly stressful, actually.
Yeah.
Isn't all that choice supposed to be liberating?
You'd think so. But sociologist Frances Nunez makes a great point about opportunity cost. It just goes through the roof.
Meaning
The range of possibilities is so vast that picking one person means you're actively, consciously renouncing being with many others. You're constantly kind of haunted by the idea you could find something better.
I get that with like choosing a job or something. You always wonder if you missed a better offer. But applying that kind of cold calculation to people, that feels really bleak.
It is bleak, and sociologist Eva Ilaus has this brilliant cutting term for someone stuck in that mindset: the hyper-rational idiot.
The hyper-rational idiot. Okay, tell me more.
It describes how we're trained to calculate everything, right? Cost benefit on investments, gym memberships, whatever, and we end up applying that same economic logic to our hearts.
Wow, so brilliant at spreadsheets, maybe, but totally missing the messy, unpredictable reality of human connection.
Precisely. You're constantly evaluating your partner's ROI, their potential, their market value, even while you're supposed to be building intimacy. That calculation itself just poisons the well.
And what does that do to us psychologically? If we're always sort of looking over their shoulder for the next best thing, does that chip away at our own ability to commit?
Oh, absolutely. It feeds this sense of relationships being really tenuous. Psychologists suggest that underneath this liquid love thing, wanting to keep things light, easy exit, there's often a lot of deep personal insecurity.
Like what?
Like feeling maybe we're not capable of making it last, or we're too flawed for someone to stick with us forever. So we kind of make the bond fragile ourselves almost preemptively.
And you see that fragility in really small ways too, right? Not just big betrayals. I think one source mentioned phubbing.
Yes. Phone snumming. Ignoring the person you're physically with because you're glued to your phone. It's this tiny daily act of disconnection that basically says, you're not the most interesting thing here. The potential marketplace out there is.
And this whole individualistic calculating approach, it's changed the structure of relationships themselves.
Fundamentally, sociologist Luis Ayuso talks about the shift away from the old romantic model, the two become one.
Right, the unit.
To this individualistic model we have now, where partners stay separate entities. It's more like a sum of parts. Everyone keeps their own space, their own money, their own time.
And if the sum doesn't add up anymore for one individual's cost-benefit analysis, they just separate.
Exactly. The goal isn't endurance, it's optimization. But here's the paradox. When you ask young people, students, about their deep aspirations, they overwhelmingly still say they want a lifelong love, a lasting partnership.
They want the fairy tale ending. But they're living the reality of the swipe right profile.
Perfectly put. They admit they struggle to stick around once that initial intense infatuation wears off. The desire for stability is still there, deep down. But the discipline, the patience, the acceptance needed to get through the messy middle of a real long relationship, that seems to be missing sometimes.
Which brings up a really critical point, connecting personal feelings to bigger structures. Is all this relationship fragility just one symptom of living a generally more precarious life overall?
That's a really compelling argument from researchers like Anna Garriga, linking relationship instability to broader life instability. I mean, how can we expect love to last forever when our jobs might not last 6 months, when housing feels insecure, when pensions are disappearing?
So you're saying if the foundations of our life, work, home, feel temporary and shaky, then the idea of a permanent person starts to feel almost unrealistic, fantastical even.
It creates this background level of instability that just seeps into everything, including our personal lives. And there's statistical data too. Studies show links between, say, lower education levels, often tied to less economic security, and higher rates of just living together and separating. It's like modern life itself is so liquid that it's undermining the very foundations of stable families or partnerships.
Faced with all that, it makes sense people would start exploring different ways to structure relationships, different ways to think about commitment, which brings us to alternatives like, say, polyamory, trying to separate commitment from exclusivity.
Yeah, it's definitely emerging as a conscious alternative model, often framed around radical honesty, especially when, let's be real, internal studies show infidelity is pretty high, even in supposedly monogamous relationships. I think the Tinder data showed something like 42% of users were already in a relationship.
Wow. So the argument becomes, why pretend? If people seek other connections anyway, why not build a structure that allows it, but still keeps some core commitment?
That's the theory. But researchers are very quick to point out the flaws there, too. It takes enormous emotional work. There's a risk of just consuming people, treating them like options. And importantly, it doesn't automatically fix power imbalances.
How so?
Well, some studies show men in polyamorous setups often having more partners than women, which suggests existing gender inequalities can just get replicated, even in these supposedly progressive structures.
Okay, so changing the rules doesn't magically fix the human challenges of expectations, effort, power dynamics. Whether it's monogamy or polyamory, those things are still there. So if we can't just rewrite the rule book, what can we do? How do we find some resilience when the world seems to be pushing us toward easy disposal?
Well, the sources suggest some practical things based on understanding the problems we've just laid out.
Okay.
First, and maybe most importantly, stop treating love like a commodity. Really internalize that relationships aren't like jackets or phones. You can't just trade them in for a newer model when they get a bit worn or don't meet every single expectation instantly.
That requires ditching that hyper-rational idiot calculator mindset, doesn't it?
Completely. It means accepting that real relationships need work, time, patience. They need space for people to be imperfect. They need resilience, which is pretty much the opposite of that liquid, easy exit approach.
Okay, step 1, stop shopping for partners. What's step 2?
Invest wisely, which ties right back to that problem of expecting one person to be your entire village.
Right. Don't put all your eggs in one basket, emotionally speaking.
Exactly. Research clearly shows that people who have diverse social supports, friends, mentors, family they can talk to about different things, money, work, feelings, they actually do much better in their main romantic relationships.
So stop expecting your partner to be your therapist, financial guru, best friend, career coach, and source of constant awe all rolled into one.
Precisely. You need those other support networks to take some of the pressure off the main bond. When you spread that emotional load, the partnership can actually focus on what it's uniquely good at: intimacy, companionship, shared life.
Ultimately, then, it sounds like we need to face the difference between the illusion of modern love, this idea it should always feel easy, always exciting, never hard, and the actual complex reality.
Yeah. Real love involves commitment, discipline, and just the resilience to stick with another flawed human being and to let them stick with your flawed self over the long haul. It takes discipline to manage that paradox we talked about, wanting both safety and adventure from the same person.
Okay, so let's try and synthesize this deep dive. We've seen modern love feels like a pressure cooker because we've loaded one relationship with the expectations of an entire community. We're navigating this brutal marketplace of choice where committing feels like losing out on infinite other possibilities.
The opportunity cost, yeah.
And all this is happening against a backdrop of wider societal precarity, job insecurity, housing instability that makes permanence itself feel fragile.
It's easy to end up feeling pretty pessimistic, isn't it? Just reinforcing Bauman's liquid love idea that maybe we're stuck with fragile connections. But we wanted to leave you with one final kind of provocative thought. It comes from sociologist Albert Esteve, and it pushes back against that pessimism.
Okay, a counter-argument, suggesting fragility isn't just failure.
Exactly. Esteve basically asks, what if all this freedom we have, now the freedom to choose partners, to try things out, and yes, to separate when things genuinely aren't working, what if that difficulty actually leads somewhere positive in the long run? He suggests maybe this whole messy, difficult process is actually cultivating better quality couples than before.
Better quality because they've navigated the difficulty.
Yeah.
Because they chose consciously knowing the alternatives.
Perhaps. So the question we'll leave you with is this. Could our current state of relationship fragility actually be a kind of painful but necessary transition? A phase we have to go through to reach a future where we form partnerships with maybe more realistic expectations, more resilience, and a much clearer sense of what we truly need versus what one person can realistically provide.
Something to think about, maybe, the next time you find yourself scrolling through profiles.